Welcome to the Astrology Academy. I'm very honored that Alfie granted us this interview. Thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, we started talking, and please continue, about the issue of astrology and finding people. You were saying?
Yeah, I was saying I had a client and an astrologer. Uh, she was also studying astrology, and she used to come to my lectures all over the United States. She used to call Carol, "Where's Alfie lecturing next?" And she'd be there. Well, her son in Florida was in Florida and in charge of missing people. So
Hmm.
she said, how would you like to work with my son finding people? So the first 3 or 4 cases that I work on, I didn't find anybody. I tell you why. And
Why?
then what happened is that, I didn't hear from the guy again. So I called this woman and I said, how come your son doesn't call me? Or he thinks astrology is garbage. So I said, I have a new method. Let's try it. So finally he called me, and the first case that we work on, we found a girl in 2 days.
How'd you
And
do that?
I was, you know, it's like, for instance, a lot of people has been calling me and writing to me and say, Alfie, you're the best astrologer to find things in the world. Why don't you look for the $1 million that they offer for Nancy, And
Wow,
I
just a
said,
million.
no,
Wow.
because a lot of people are, as far as I know, they try to do it. So what time do they use? Their own time and everything. See, when
Well, that's a good point. When you're working on that, you have to start with what time are you using, right?
that's right. When these people used to call me on the first case, I used to use the FBI time. All right,
Okay.
that they called me. And then I used to associate the missing person, if it was even a kid, with the seventh house, because the seventh house is something that you're not related to the client. I mean, the
Hmm.
Corin. And the Corin, of course, was the person that works the FBI. So it
Okay.
was hard to associate what was going on. And
Oh, you mean
especially,
sorting out the querent from the missing person, you're saying from the seventh house?
well, uh, yeah, in a horary, if there's no relationship to you, you use the seventh house.
Okay.
Will this person do something? All right. So I asked my client, do you know this person? No, he's a stranger. Well, if he's a stranger, you have to use seventh house.
Okay.
So that never worked. And in my dream, I was
Okay.
told, uh, uh, the best thing to do is why don't you try to get the 911 call when somebody call and say, look, my kid is missing.
Yeah,
Can you
that would
do
be a reliable
something?
time.
That's like a horary question
Mm-hmm.
because somebody is asking, where is my kid?
Right. Yeah.
So so I started using the 911 call and it worked perfectly because the 911
Fantastic.
call is the person that has, so the first case that I work on, for instance, that I had it right was this guy was divorced and he was living in Florida and he was living in a trailer park and he was working nights and he had this 10-year-old girl that was living with him and his mother was living with him, so she was taking care of the kid. And he came home one morning and he says to his mom, where is the kid? And she said, oh, she didn't get up yet, so I'll go up and wake her up. So he went out and woke her up. She was gone. and the window was broken in the trailer where the her room was, and she was gone. All right. So
Okay.
seeing that the grandmother called the 911, so she became the quarry and
Okay.
the person that asked the question. Her son is the fifth house, and then the son's daughter becomes the fifth from the fifth, the ninth house.
Right.
So now the ninth house, anything that ties with the ninth house, you can describe it. Now, if she was adopted in any way, then it would be the third house, the person in opposite to. So the third house would describe the person if she was adopted in any way, where he lives and stuff like that.
So wait, the third house, if they're abducted, you think describes the abductor?
Yeah, because
Okay.
it's the seventh from the ninth.
Yeah.
So that way there you can take direction from the the trailer park from there. And the way that I use direction also in my book, Lose This Book, which is like I said, is astrologer calls that the Bible. Even Rob Hayne and Noel Tilt and C. Forrest, and they
Oh, your
love
books are
this
great.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And what I do is that to get the location, let's say that uh, uh, like this case here, the missing girl is ruled by the ninth house.
Okay.
So you put it on a local space. Now we know that the tenth house is south, the fourth house is north, and the in between is that. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not true east because the ascendant is not true east. It's about like 29 degrees 30 minutes to 30 degrees off. Local space is the east point. So I
Okay.
put it on local space and get the direction exactly with the body of the kid. Where is the kid now?
So you
All
take the
right.
first house as east though on the horary?
No, no. I
Okay.
use. Let's see that the kid is in the fifth house. The ruler of the ninth house is in the fifth house,
Okay.
so it would be somewhere between northwest. But
Uh,
a true direction, if we put it on local space, we get exactly the degree. And then in my book, I have to finding distance, depending if it's in a fixed sign, Caden houses, the houses. And then you can find how far the kid is. And
okay.
that's usually what it works. All right. And I found, I don't know, tons of them. As a matter of fact, an astrologer friend of mine from Canada, I worked with him last week because there was a missing kid in his town and he was working with the police and they found it. They found him using the method that I said. See, horary is very important because the houses is the first important thing. And then, of course, you know, the time.
Well, what house system do you use for missing people or horary? What house system do you use?
What's that?
Well, like Dorothy Allison used to use Coke. I mean, what house system do you use on horary charts for missing
I
people?
use Placidus.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, actually, you know, no matter what house system except a couple, use they come out with the same midheaven ascendant and all that. It's the way they divide the inner house system. They don't change that much, but they could change some. But I use Placidus.
Okay. Now, what about the moon? Because I was also taught that you look to the moon's movement, like its next aspect for like the next action. like in finding it or not finding the person kind of a thing. Do you follow the moon at all in these charts?
Well, if the moon is not involved in one of the rulers here, the seventh house, the ninth house, or this like that, then I leave the moon out till I look at the last aspect of the moon to see exactly before it turns void, of course. And
Right.
that will tell you exactly how this stuff is going to turn out.
See, I wonder about that because I know Dorothy also talked about sometimes you're not going to find the person. How would you determine when you're looking at a chart like you're not going to find this person?
Well, you're not going to find this person. It means that there's no aspect between, especially in this case here, there's no aspect between the ruler of the ninth house, planets in the ninth house, and the fifth house, the ruler of the fifth house, because that's the father, all right, or planet
Okay.
or the ascendant. If there's no aspect between the kid and the ascendant and the fifth house here, that means you're not going to find it. It's
Okay.
just like if you lost a diamond ring and there's no aspect between the diamond, usually all belonging to you, you use the second house. All right.
Okay.
So if somebody call and say, I lost my diamond ring, I lost my earring aid, I lost something, it's always the second house. So if there's
Okay.
no aspect between rulers of ruler of the second house or what we call uh, uh, planets in the second house to the ascendant or ruler of the ascendant, they're not going to find it.
Okay. Now, do you have any system to identify, like, let's say in a missing person case and they've been kidnapped, do you have any system you use to identify who took the person or murdered the person? You know, who the culprit is?
Yeah. Of course, this is this is a long story. Who
We
took
got
the
time.
person? Yeah, who took the person? Like this one here was in the third house. The ruler of him was the ruler of him was the third house, but the ruler of the third house was in the third house. So that means that the abductor was in the neighborhood. Now,
Okay. Do
if
you
it
always use the third house though for the culprit, or how do you determine what house to use for the culprit or the murderer or kidnapper?
well, again, it's if a person call the wife call and say my husband is missing,
Hmm.
then you know, and you take the 911 call, and the husband would be the seventh house.
Okay.
So if somebody abducted him or took him, you
Hmm.
know, then it would be the first house.
The first house. Okay.
Yeah, it's the opposition because the opposition of whoever we're looking for. And like, for
Mm,
instance, you would look, is he dead?
right.
There's a lot of things. If he's dead, then the ruler of the seventh house and the second house, because that's the eight from the
Right.
seven.
Hmm.
There would be you would have a trine or say yes, he's dead.
Okay.
You know.